Yeah.
For the first time since 2004, the ABC Primetime crew is headed to Ames, Iowa for a crucial Big 12 matchup between the 18th ranked Oklahoma Sooners and the Iowa State Cyclones. This is a series that over the past few years has been one of the better matchups in the entire Big 12. The past 4 meetings between the Sooners and the Cyclones have been decided by 10 points or less. And now, this game, this year's matchup, could be one of the biggest in recent years, as it is a potential playoff elimination game for not just Oklahoma, but potentially Iowa State as well, as this is an opportunity for Iowa State to show the nation and to show the Big 12 that they are legit, that they are legitimate Big 12 title contenders despite their poor start to 2020. So we're going to take a look at this game, guys. We're going to take a look at the offense for both the Sooners and the Cyclones. We're going to take a look at the defense, the keys for each team on both sides of the ball, and who we have winning this major matchup on Saturday night. The first thing we want to look at is the spread here. Oklahoma opens as a 7-point favorite. The Sooners will be a 7-point favorite, a full touchdown going in to Ames on Saturday. And of course, that spread, guys, brought to you by betnow.eu. Make sure you check out that link down in the description below. Use our promo code Gridiron for that 100% sign-up bonus over on BetNow. They've got some of the best spreads, some of the best opportunities, some of the best offers right over there. We've enjoyed working with them for over a year now. Haven't had any troubles, haven't had any complaints. It is by far the best place for all of your betting needs. So betnow.eu, you can get the spread for this game, Oklahoma favored by 7, along with all of our other games over on BetNow. So make sure to check that out, as well as everything else down in the description as well. So we take a look at the recent trends here between Oklahoma and Iowa State. Obviously, we mentioned that the past 4 meetings between these two teams has been decided by 10 points or less. That includes last year's meeting in Norman, where Oklahoma almost pulled a Kansas State, where Oklahoma almost allowed Iowa State to do what Kansas State did to them last week. The Sooners were leading by 21 points in that game. Iowa State battled all the way back in the 4th quarter. And Matt Campbell decided to go for 2 on the road to win the game. And Brock Purdy's 2-point conversion pass attempt was intercepted in the end zone. Oklahoma escaped with a 42-41 victory. Had the Sooners lost that game, they're out of the playoffs. Same thing could happen here on Saturday night. Oklahoma is coming off a 38-35 loss to Kansas State last week. Keep in mind, Oklahoma lost to Kansas State in 2019. They also blew that 21-point lead in the 3rd quarter to the Wildcats, allowing 400 yards of offense and Spencer Rattler throwing for 3 interceptions. So that's going to be a major key here. How well does Oklahoma bounce back after a devastating loss to the Wildcats, a game they shouldn't have lost? All the credit in the world to Chris Kleiman and Kansas State, but the Sooners had that game in the bag. They simply just blew it. Iowa State, on the other hand, we mentioned a disappointing start to 2020. They lost in their season opener to Louisiana by 17 points. Now, granted, 14 of those points came off special teams. So you really can't do much about that. You can try to stop it, but if you take away those special team points, it's obviously a much closer game. Iowa State bounced back last week, going on the road and defeating TCU by 3, but obviously a game that if you take away Brock Purdy's ridiculous backwards pass that resulted in a touchdown, if you take away that late touchdown for TCU, Iowa State wins by 16 or 17 points, and people aren't too concerned about the Cyclones here. So an impressive win on the road against Gary Patterson and the Horned Frogs. They look like a completely different team, in my opinion, when they played TCU than they did in their opener against Louisiana. So these are two teams kind of going in opposite directions right now. I would say Iowa State improved after their loss to Louisiana, improved during that time, and obviously are carrying a little bit of momentum into this game, while Oklahoma, I would say, did not improve and obviously took a little bit of a step back, and you would hope that their heads are not hanging down, that they are still going to be motivated, knowing that their season's not over yet, but a loss here would end their season. So let's take a look at their offense here, guys. We'll start with Oklahoma. Obviously, a strength for them. That's Lincoln Riley's forte. And for years now, Oklahoma has had one of the best offenses in the entire country. But this was an Oklahoma team that even back in the preseason, we all kind of thought they could take a little bit of a step back. They don't have that transfer quarterback coming in anymore. You know, it was Baker Mayfield, then it was Kyler Murray, then it was Jalen Hurts. So you had three solid quarterbacks, all transfers that had experience coming in, filling the void at the quarterback position, each of those quarterbacks leading the Sooners to the playoff. Now they don't have that benefit, and while Spencer Rattler, I think, has played relatively well, keep in mind he threw 3 interceptions last week against Kansas State, was pressured a lot in that game against the Wildcats, and never really seemed to get comfortable, never really seemed to make good decisions throughout the course of that game, obviously resulting in a loss. Rattler's thrown for 677 yards, 8 touchdowns, and those 3 interceptions this season, and the Sooners are still averaging 41.5 points per game. It's ridiculous. I know it's only been 2 games. I know they killed Missouri State in their opener, but still, 41.5 points per game, 435.5 passing yards per game is what they're averaging right now. But again, this is a young team. We knew they didn't have as much experience and as much depth as they've had in years past. You've got a freshman quarterback in Rattler. Your top wide receiver right now for Oklahoma is Marvin Mims, who has 111 yards and 3 touchdowns this season. But he, too, is a freshman. And then you've got Seth McGowan, the running back, the leading rusher right now, who is also a freshman. 134 yards and 2 touchdowns on the year for McGowan. So your 3 leaders right now in passing, rushing, and receiving are all freshmen. You're going to see some mistakes. You're going to see some struggles, especially as you start to play more elite opponents and more difficult opponents. Kansas State proved to be that somehow. Iowa State, I think, could be even more difficult than the test that the Wildcats gave the Sooners last week. You look at Iowa State here. They are certainly much more experienced than the Sooners. Yet they are still struggling a little bit offensively. Obviously, I think they turned a corner in that TCU game. I know we're only 3 weeks in now, 3 games into the season for both of these teams. But like I said, the drastic difference from week 1 to week 2 for Iowa State was very impressive to me. They're only averaging 25.5 points per game. They're not very explosive, but what they do have is balance. Matt Campbell has implemented a balance offensively for Iowa State. 178 passing yards per game, 185.5 rushing yards per game. So very, very balanced there. Only 7.5 yards difference between their passing and rushing. They're led by Breece Hall, who last week against TCU had 155 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's going to be a key in this game. Everybody wants to talk quarterbacks, but Breece Hall could be the difference maker in this game, trying to maintain that balance for Iowa State against a not very stingy Oklahoma defense, one that has struggled a little bit this season and mightily struggled against Kansas State. And I would venture to say that I believe Iowa State's offense is a little bit better than Kansas State's. We know that Iowa State also should get some key starters back. They should be getting some offensive linemen back from injury. So back up front, a game that could be won in the trenches, you need that. There's one of the best tight ends in the country in Charlie Kolar. He was back last week for Iowa State. So that's huge for him. Now going to be in his 2nd game back. He's been hit a little bit. He should be ready to go. And that gives Brock Purdy another huge pass-catching option. You need that. Brock Purdy needs that. He's thrown for 356 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception this season, but did complete 78.3% of his passes against TCU last week. Horrible Week 1 performance against Louisiana. Very impressive bounce-back performance against TCU last week, with the exception, again, of that ridiculous backwards pass that resulted in a touchdown for TCU. And Purdy even came out and said, that was freshman me trying to make a play out there. It looked like a freshman making that kind of stupid mistake. And I don't think Purdy's going to make those mistakes in a pivotal matchup on Saturday night. So a key for Oklahoma offensively, we'll start with them first. A key for them is do not overdo it. I can see Lincoln Riley getting his guys hyped. They're embarrassed. They're disappointed. They're angry after blowing that 21-point lead to Kansas State. So they're going to try to come out there, start fast, blow Iowa State off the line. Everybody in Ames is going to be like, what the heck is going on? So I can see Lincoln Riley trying to do that. They don't need to. Because if you come out there and you get too aggressive with such a young team, you're going to make mistakes. So go out there, feel out Iowa State. Start off early, and feel them out. See where their weaknesses are and then start attacking them. Let Spencer Rattler get comfortable. Because I tell you what, if they make mistakes early, just like Rattler did last week, throwing an interception on the 6th play of the game, if they make mistakes early, you're going to set the tone early. And it's not going to be setting the tone in favor of you. It's going to be setting the tone in favor of Iowa State. So go out there, start easy, figure things out, and then start attacking and playing fast like Lincoln Riley and Oklahoma have been known to do. Iowa State, meanwhile, they are going to have to set the tone early. They have the home field advantage. This is the first home game this season that will have fans. The game against Louisiana did not. And while it only will be around 15,000 fans, any fans are better than none. And it's a night game in Ames with some fans against an elite team in Oklahoma. And we all know that Ames, Iowa, at night especially, is a very difficult place to play. It's something about the state of Iowa. Jack Trice Stadium and Kinnick Stadium at night, one of the toughest places to play in the nation. So Iowa State, they need to get a fast start here. They need a strong start from Brock Purdy. You look at what Skylar Thompson did last week for Kansas State, throwing for 334 yards against this Oklahoma defense. I believe Purdy can do that as well. He started slow, but I really think he kind of found his footing last week against TCU. He knows the importance of this game. We know the type of quarterback Purdy can be, and I think we do see that on Saturday night. Defensively, obviously this is not an area of strength for both of these teams, but I think both defenses have struggled a little bit in 2020. Oklahoma, we'll start with them. They just allowed 400 yards to Kansas State. Kansas State is by far not the best offense Oklahoma will face this season. Iowa State could be better. Texas can be better. Oklahoma State can be better. So Oklahoma allowing 400 yards to Kansas State simply is not acceptable. Deuce Vaughn and Skylar Thompson were one of the best duos in college football last week, just torching Oklahoma's defense left and right. The one thing that Oklahoma has done right defensively, though, is allowing just 60 rushing yards per game. Their rushing defense is one of the best in the country as of right now. They held Kansas State to 66 yards, and we mentioned earlier that Breece Hall, the running back for Iowa State, he could be the difference maker in this game. Is he going to have any sort of success against such a stingy Oklahoma run defense? And if he doesn't, will Iowa State find another way to utilize him? Maybe out of the backfield, or maybe getting creative with their runs. Don't just go up the middle every time. Get some outside. That's going to be a very interesting storyline to watch here. The one thing that Oklahoma is struggling with, though, great run defense, they don't have a very good pass rush. They only had 1 sack last week against Kansas State, a Kansas State offensive line that really isn't all that good. They forced 0 turnovers last week against Kansas State. They've only forced 1 turnover this season. So against Missouri State, they forced 1. Against Kansas State, they forced none. That's not going to work. That is not going to work. If you lose the turnover battle like they did last week against Kansas State, you are going to lose the game. So Oklahoma's got to find a little bit of a pass rush, make Purdy uncomfortable, and they need to get out there and they need to start stealing the ball. Something they haven't been able to do this season and something they've struggled with a lot lately under Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch as defensive coordinator. Iowa State, they're a little bit of the opposite. Their pass rush is not lacking. It is not lacking at all. They had 7 sacks last week against TCU. 3.5 of those, so half of the sacks last week for Iowa State came from Jaquan Bailey, who became the leading sack leader in Iowa State history. He became the sack leader in Iowa State history. So really unbelievable performance for him and such an impressive accomplishment for him. Obviously the leader of this Iowa State defense. Kansas State last week against Oklahoma sacked Spencer Rattler 3 times. And they pressured him a lot more. A lot more knockdowns, a lot more errant throws because of the pressure that Kansas State was putting on him. And I look at that and I say, that's an impressive performance from Chris Klieman and the Wildcats. Iowa State, again, can do better. With that defensive line that Iowa State has, after what I saw from them last week against TCU, it could be a nightmare performance for Spencer Rattler, and it could be a very long night for him if Iowa State rushes and pressures the quarterback like they did last week against TCU. Iowa State right now is only allowing 108.5 rushing yards per game. Not a horrible mark. And I don't expect that number to be much higher. I expect them to hold Oklahoma to around that mark in that Saturday's matchup. but the Cyclones are allowing 277 passing yards per game. And I do expect Spencer Rattler to put up at least probably 300 yards in this game against the Cyclones. Whether it's in a winning effort or a losing effort, Rattler will bounce back with a lot of yards. He's done that in both of his games this year. It's just the turnovers that are hurting him. So the key here for Oklahoma defensively is to force Brock Purdy into mistakes. Again, last week he had that one errant throw, one errant play. Outside of that, I thought he played flawlessly. Completed 78% of his passes, threw for over 200 yards, had a touchdown. You really can't ask for anything better, and you won on the road. So Oklahoma's got to come in here, and they've got to find a way to make Purdy uncomfortable in his home stadium. Whether that's pressuring him, whether that's getting interceptions, whether that's causing fumbles, whatever it is, you've got to make Brock Purdy uncomfortable, and you have got to force turnovers. Especially in a hostile environment on the road, you have got to win the turnover battle. And that's, again, something that Oklahoma has struggled with mightily. If they fail to win the turnover battle, Oklahoma will lose. We saw that last week against Kansas State. We've seen that in years past under Lincoln Riley in multiple games. And we will see that here now, if that in fact is the case. Iowa State, very similar to Oklahoma. Pressure Spencer Rattler. You did so well against TCU, 7 sacks. That's an impressive performance from your defensive line. Jaquan Bailey's got to lead that charge again. Go in there. This is Spencer Rattler's first start on the road. And again, we know we don't have, a sold-out crowd. No team in the country is going to have that. So Iowa State's not going to be sold out. It's not going to be like it would be under normal circumstances. So that actually helps Spencer Rattler more than anything. But it's still a road game. It's still an uncomfortable and a different environment for him. And I'm curious to see how he bounces back. Not just in this type of environment, but how he bounces back following such a disappointing performance last week. So Iowa State, pressure Spencer Rattler. Force him into mistakes. And finally, make sure to make tackles in open space. Oklahoma gets a lot of big plays because their receivers and their running backs are so versatile. And they are able to create something out of nothing. I know they don't have C.D. Lamb anymore. He was the best at doing that. But Iowa State cannot allow for Oklahoma to pick up extra yards, to pick up first downs, to score touchdowns when they should have had a tackle. They've got to make sure to get tackles in open space and not make stupid mistakes. Work on your fundamentals. If Iowa State comes out and plays fundamentally sound football, they will come away with a win here. So what is going to happen in Ames on Saturday night? Again, it is the first time that the ABC Primetime crew, and that is a big deal, the first time they are visiting Ames since 2004. This has been an absolute battle between Iowa State and Oklahoma in recent years. The past 4 games decided by 10 points or less. Iowa State winning one of those games, nearly won another one last year, falling 42-41 in Norman. And so what I believe will be one of the better games of Week 5, I believe that Iowa State pulls off the massive upset. And to some, you'll say, it's not massive. Oklahoma State's only 7-point favorites. Oklahoma is only 18th team in the country. So why is it a major upset? Because this win right here for Iowa State will end Oklahoma's playoff hopes just 3 games into the season. This is a team that's made the playoff 3 years in a row, and they will fail to make it now, just 3 weeks into the season. The youth plays a big factor in this one. The experience for Iowa State plays a big factor in this one. Brock Purdy throws for at least 250 yards. Iowa State forces at least 2 turnovers in this game. And the Cyclones show they are legitimate Big 12 title contenders. And they spoil Oklahoma's season early in 2020. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in that description below. We've got that BetNow link, betnow.eu. Use that promo code GRIDIRON for this weekend. You do not want to miss out on the offers that they're throwing at you. Make sure to sign up for our expert picks, sign up for our weekly newsletter, and sign up for the content over on Patreon as well. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.